It does not come from controlling the world outside, but from mastering the world within. Imagine if instead of waiting for life to fix itself, you decided today to take radical ownership of every choice, every action, every moment. How different would your life look a year from now if you stopped handing away your power? If you're done drifting through life, it's time to take the wheel. Subscribe not just to this channel but to your own discipline, your own clarity, your own growth. Every step toward mastery is a step toward becoming who you were meant to be, and that journey starts now. People love to believe that success belongs to the gifted. It is comforting to think that some people were simply born with something special the rest of us can't reach. As if their lives were written in the stars and ours were left to wander in the dust. But if you look closely, that belief is nothing more than an illusion. It is a story we tell ourselves to excuse our own lack of effort. The Stoics would remind us that talent is far less powerful than discipline, and discipline is available to everyone. A seed, no matter how rare or valuable, will never grow if it isn't placed in soil and watered. The same is true for you. The potential you admire in others isn't magic. It's effort stacked on effort day after day. Often in silence when no one is watching. What makes this illusion dangerous is how easily it becomes a cage. When we convince ourselves that talent is destiny, we quietly surrender before the battle even begins. Think about how many times you've looked at someone's success and said, "They're just lucky. They're just gifted." That thought feels safe, doesn't it? Because if success is only about natural ability, then you don't have to hold yourself accountable for the work you haven't done. You don't have to ask why you've avoided the discomfort of discipline. But every time you choose that excuse, you trade the possibility of growth for the comfort of surrender. And the truth is, comfort has never created greatness. Seneca once said, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity." What he meant is that those who look lucky are usually the ones who prepared often for years while the rest of the world looked away. Carl Jung believed that each of us carries more within us than we often allow ourselves to see. Wrote, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. If you are waiting for proof that you are capable before you act, you will wait forever. Clarity doesn't come first, action does. Once you begin, once you face the grind and the discipline, your vision sharpens, the illusion of talent fades, and you begin to see that what you thought was unreachable was simply neglected inside you, waiting to be cultivated. Every person you admire began uncertain, flawed, and ordinary. The difference is that they refuse to stop. Think about the craftsmen who built cathedrals that took generations to complete. Most never saw the final masterpiece. They laid one stone upon another, trusting that the act of building was worth more than recognition. That's what discipline looks like in practice. You don't measure your worth by how gifted you are on day one. You measure it by how many times you return to the work, even when no one claps, even when the results come slowly. Ever heard the saying, "No one is free who is not master of themselves"? It's an old idea, but it's more relevant today than ever. We get so caught up waiting for some magical talent to appear, some sign that we're special. But real freedom, real power, isn't about waiting for a gift you might never get. It's about mastering the choices you make every single day, especially the small ones. So, take a hard look in the mirror and ask yourself, is it really true that I lack talent? Or have I just refused to nurture what I've already been given? Think about it. Every time you tell yourself you're not naturally gifted, you're just feeding the weeds of doubt and starving the seeds of your own potential. You're letting yourself off the hook. There is no person alive who doesn't have something worth growing, not a single one. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't isn't about some innate gift. It's about who chooses to put in the work. It's the person who gets up at 4 in the morning to practice their craft while everyone else is asleep. It's the one who pushes through the boredom, the frustration, and the failures when the results aren't showing up. They refuse to quit. What the world sees later and calls talent is actually the result of that relentless effort. Others might call it natural, but you'll know the truth. It was built, piece by piece, day by day. It was never just born. The illusion of talent is a dangerous trap. It's a quiet whisper in your ear that says you can't, that other people were chosen and you were not. It's a convenient excuse to stay small, to not even try. But if you look closer at the people who truly rise to the top, you'll rarely find they were the most gifted from the start. Instead, they are the most disciplined. They are the most consistent. They are the ones willing to pay the price of effort, day in and day out, with no guarantee of success. They understand that the process is the prize. The world will always celebrate the finished product and label it talent. But if you choose the harder path, you'll know that greatness is forged through discipline, sharpened by resilience, and sustained by one simple decision: to not stop. And maybe that's the real test. The question isn't whether you were born with enough talent. The question is, are you willing to take the little you have and nurture it until it becomes more than enough? Because greatness isn't a gift handed to you on a silver platter. It's a responsibility you choose to carry. It's easy to talk about accountability when life is calm and things are going your way. In theory, the word sounds strong, noble, even inspiring, but then the alarm rings before dawn, the to-do list for the day stretches out endlessly before you, and nobody is there to watch. Nobody is there to cheer you on. That's when the true weight of accountability settles in. Those quiet, lonely moments, the motivational quotes fade away. What remains is a raw, simple question: will you follow through on the promises you whispered to yourself in easier times? True accountability isn't glamorous. It's not a burst of energy you get from watching a video. It is the daily grind of showing up when it would be so much simpler not to. It's the discipline of carrying the load that no one else can carry for you. It's heavy, and that's why so many people talk about accountability but so few actually practice it. It's uncomfortable because it strips away all your excuses. You can no longer say, "I didn't have time," or "I wasn't given a fair chance." The mirror just asks you plainly, did you do what you said you would do? The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius put it perfectly. He said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." We can apply that to our own lives. Waste no more time debating what accountability should look like. Just do it. Either you act, or you don't. Either you honor your word to yourself, or you break it. There is no middle ground. And listen, this weight, this responsibility, isn't meant to crush you. It's meant to strengthen you. Think about lifting heavy stones. At first, the strain feels unbearable, but over time, the very act of carrying that weight builds the muscle that makes the next stone feel lighter. The challenge builds you. Accountability is that muscle. Each time you choose to do the hard thing, to get out of bed, to write that page, to make that call, you are strengthening your character. The discomfort you feel is the feeling of growth. It's proof that you are becoming someone who can be relied upon, especially by yourself. This is where self-trust is born. It doesn't come from affirmations or wishful thinking. It comes from a long and broken chain of kept promises. When you know, deep down, that when you say you will do something, it gets done. You develop an unshakable confidence that no external validation can give you and no external criticism can take away. So, the next time you feel that heavy burden of responsibility, don't run from it. Welcome it. See it not as a weight, but as an opportunity. An opportunity to prove to yourself that you are stronger than your excuses. An opportunity to build the person you want to become. Because when you look back, you won't remember the easy days. You'll remember the moments you felt the full weight of accountability on your shoulders, and you chose to stand up straight and carry it anyway. That is where your true power lies. The choice isn't between talent and no talent. It's between discipline and regret. Which one will you choose today? Accountability works in the same way. Every small act of follow-through, whether it's finishing the workout you didn't want to start or sending the report you promised, builds a deeper trust in yourself. You begin to realize that your word has weight. And that realization is quietly life-changing, because once you know you can depend on yourself, you stop waiting for permission from others. Still, there is a reason it feels so heavy. It demands more than action. It demands honesty. To be accountable means you cannot hide behind appearances. It means acknowledging where you fell short without disguise and choosing to try again. Seneca warned us that most men are not truly free because they live for the opinion of others. Accountability frees you from that trap. It forces you to care less about applause and more about integrity. Do you act because it's right, or only because someone is watching? That question cuts deeply because it forces you to examine your motives. Carl Jung once wrote, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." Accountability is the act of looking inside with unflinching eyes. It is the daily awakening to the fact that you are responsible for your actions, your choices, your time. This awakening can feel painful because it removes the comforting illusion that circumstances or other people are the reason for your stagnation, but at the same time, it gives you back your power. If you are responsible, then you also have the power to change. The heaviness of accountability is also tied to its loneliness. When you stand accountable, you often stand alone. Others may not understand why you push yourself when no one demands it. They may not see the point of the quiet sacrifices they were spent in practice. The discipline maintained when it seems unnecessary. But that solitude is not weakness, it is the ground where character is formed. Socrates once said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." Accountability is examination in action. Imagine sitting across from someone you deeply admire, a mentor, a guide. The kind of person whose opinion carries weight because they live the life you respect. Now imagine laying out your entire week in front of them, hour by hour, choice by choice. No filters, no excuses, no explanations, just the raw truth of how you spent your time. Would you hold your head high, confident that your actions matched your ambitions? Or would you feel the sting of shame, shrinking under the quiet realization of how much of your life was given away to distraction, to delay, to things that do not truly matter? This is the mirror test. It is not about judgment from others, but about whether you can look at yourself without flinching. Time is the currency of life, and yet it is the one resource we spend most carelessly. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." The mirror test forces you to ask whether you've been a faithful steward of that resource or a careless spend. Every hour you waste is not just time lost, it is life lost. And once it slips away, it never returns. Excuses are some of the most convincing lies we tell ourselves because they wear the mask of reason. I don't have time. I don't have support. I don't have the resources. On the surface, these statements sound rational, even responsible, but when you strip them down, they are all the same, an attempt to escape the weight of responsibility. They let us feel justified in doing less while still holding on to the illusion that we wanted to do more. The problem is that excuses may protect our comfort in the short term, but they quietly steal the life we could have lived. Do you ever feel stuck, like you're repeating the same mistakes over and over again? There's a subtle but powerful distinction that could be holding you back. A difference that determines whether you move forward or stay trapped. It's the difference between shame and disappointment. Shame is that corrosive inner voice. It whispers that you're broken, that something is fundamentally wrong with you. It tells you that you'll never be good enough. Disappointment, on the other hand, is much simpler. It just says you fell short this time. Shame is a heavy anchor, paralyzing you, but disappointment, while it stings, can be the very spark that ignites your growth. Imagine a toddler learning to walk. They stumble, they fall, they might even cry. But does anyone shame them for falling? Of course not. The fall isn't seen as proof that the child is defective. It's seen as proof that they're learning, that they're trying, and because they aren't crushed by the weight of shame, what do? They get back up. They try again. And eventually, they walk, then they run, and they go on to explore their world. Now, think about how harshly we often treat ourselves as adults. One failure, one missed opportunity, one rejection, and we can collapse into a spiral of shame, convinced we are the problem. This is where a little ancient wisdom can completely change our perspective. The Stoic way isn't about self-condemnation, it's about self-examination. You don't deny your mistakes, but you also don't inflate them into proof of your worthlessness. You look at them clearly. You ask what they can teach you. And then you decide what to do differently next time. When you look at it this way, disappointment is actually a form of hope. To be disappointed means you still care. It means you still hold a vision for something better for yourself. Shame, however, steals that vision. It convinces you that no matter what you do, the outcome will always be the same, so why even bother trying? It's the ultimate dream killer. So how do we break free? Whenever life pushes you down or a plan goes wrong, the most powerful thing you can do is also one of the most uncomfortable. You have to ask yourself a tough question. How is this my fault? Now, wait. I know how that sounds. At first, those words feel like an attack, like you're just piling on more blame. But this question isn't a weapon meant to break you down. It's a tool or precision instrument designed to uncover where your influence, your power truly lies. It strips away the false comfort of blaming other people or circumstances. It denies you the easy escape of pointing fingers outward, and in doing so, it forces you to look inward, which is the only place your power actually lives. The moment you shift your focus from the external world to your internal world, you reclaim something absolutely essential: your agency, your ability to change. The Stoic philosophers were crystal clear on this. Epictetus famously taught, "We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them." Asking, "How is this my fault?" is really just another way of asking, what part of my response could I have controlled but didn't? Maybe you didn't prepare as thoroughly as you could have. Maybe you avoided a difficult but necessary conversation until it was too late. Or maybe you saw the warning signs but ignored them because facing the truth felt too uncomfortable in the moment. This isn't about beating yourself up. It's about empowerment. When you blame the economy, your boss, or bad luck, you're essentially saying you're a victim of forces beyond your control. You become a passenger in your own life, but when you take ownership, even for a small part of the outcome, you grab the steering wheel. You're no longer a victim. You're a student. You're learning, adapting, and growing stronger. This is the heart of personal responsibility. It's not a burden, it's a superpower. The world will always be unpredictable. People will disappoint you. Plans will fail. That's a given. The only variable you have 100% control over is you, your choices, your reactions, your effort. So, let's make this practical. The next time you face a setback, I want you to try this. First, allow yourself to feel the disappointment. Don't suppress it. Acknowledge the frustration, the sadness, the sting. It's real. But then, consciously stop the slide into shame. Catch that voice that says I am a failure and replace it with I failed at this task, this time. See the difference. One is an identity, the other is an event. One is permanent, the other is temporary. After you've done that, take a deep breath and ask the hard question, okay, what was my part in this? How is this my fault? Write it down. Be brutally honest with yourself. But not cruel. Maybe you procrastinated. Maybe your communication wasn't clear. Maybe you let your ego get in the way. Identify your contribution, not to punish yourself, but to find the lesson. What's the one thing you can do differently next time? This single step transforms a dead end into a doorway. It turns failure from a verdict into a tutor. This practice, done consistently, will change your relationship with failure forever. You'll begin to see setbacks not as roadblocks, but as guardrails, gently nudging you back onto a better path. You'll build a resilience that doesn't just help you bounce back, but bounce forward. More capable and wiser than before. This is the path from shame to strength. It's about choosing disappointment over despair, and responsibility over blame. It's about realizing that every single moment, no matter how difficult, contains an opportunity to become a better version of yourself. So take that power. Ask the hard question. Find your fault. Find your lesson, and then get back up. Taking control of your life is never free. It comes with a cost, a price that's heavier than most people are willing to pay. Responsibility demands a kind of emotional tax. A constant toll collected not in money, but in effort, sacrifice, and brutal honesty. It costs you your comfort. Because comfort thrives in avoidance and procrastination. It costs you your excuses, because excuses dissolve the very moment you decide to stand accountable for your own reality. And most importantly, it costs you the luxury of pointing fingers, because true ownership leaves absolutely no room for blame. When you finally decide to get into the driver's seat of your own life, you become fully aware that every single choice you make carries weight. At first, that awareness can be unsettling, even a little terrifying. The road ahead might look foggy and uncertain, but by accepting ownership, you can no longer pretend that the circumstances of your life are random or solely dictated by others. Every decision becomes meaningful. Every action becomes a vote for the person you are becoming. The great Stoic emperor Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "It is not external things that trouble us, but our judgments about them." He understood that the power isn't in what happens to you, but in how you choose to respond. This is the core of ownership. It's taking back the controls from fate, from circumstance, from other people, and placing them firmly in your own hands. When you truly begin to hold yourself accountable, something subtle but incredibly powerful shifts inside you. At first, it's just about your own life, your own goals, your own mistakes. But over time, this discipline changes not just how you see yourself, but how you see the world. You stop tolerating weakness. Not because you want to judge or belittle anyone, but because you understand what it costs to rise above it. You start to see potential where others see problems. You become a standard, beacon in the storm. The world doesn't change because we go around demanding more from other people. It changes because we start demanding more from ourselves. Your commitment becomes a quiet challenge to the mediocrity around you. This personal standard you set has a ripple effect. When you raise your own bar, people around you almost subconsciously begin to mirror it. A friend starts rethinking their own excuses because they see you consistently choosing discipline over distraction. A colleague at work puts in a little more effort because your consistency quietly raises the collective bar for excellence. A family member feels inspired to tackle a challenge they've been avoiding because they witness your courage. True leadership begins right here, not with a title or a position of authority, but with personal ownership. You lead by example, not by decree. You inspire change not by shouting, but by doing. Your life becomes a testament to what is possible when someone decides to stop being a passenger and starts driving. This journey of ownership is a continuous process. It's not a one-time decision, but a daily practice. It's waking up and choosing responsibility over resentment. It's choosing action over apathy. It's choosing to build your future instead of complaining about your past. It's the constant, quiet work of sculpting your character, day by day, choice by choice. You become the architect of your own existence. This path is lonely at times. You'll be the one walking up the steep hill while others are content to sit at the bottom. But the view from the top, the sense of self-respect and integrity you earn, is worth every single step. It's the ultimate freedom. The freedom that comes not from having no rules, but from writing your own. So ask yourself, what are you willing to pay? Are you willing to trade temporary comfort for lasting fulfillment? Are you ready to let go of the stories that hold you back and start writing a new one? The cost is high, but the reward is a life lived on your own terms. A life of purpose, a life of impact, a life where you are not just a character in the story, but the author. It all starts with one simple, yet profound decision: to take ownership. Have you ever stopped to wonder, what if everything they call love is nothing more than a fear of being alone? What if the need to have someone is simply a disguise to avoid facing the emptiness within yourself? And what if what you call a relationship is just another way to run away from you? Nothing is closer to the truth than the discomfort we feel in solitude. The Stoics urged us to imagine being on our deathbed, the room silent, the air heavy, and to ask, did you live your own life? Or did you merely exist in the shadow of someone else's? Most people don't fall in love because they've reached a place of wholeness. They fall because they're terrified of the silence that waits for them when the noise stops. They fill the empty space with another person, not always because they deeply want that person, but because it's easier than facing themselves. We rarely talk about how much of what we call love is simply a beautifully dressed form of avoidance. The problem is, when love is rooted in fear, it becomes fragile. Every disagreement feels like a threat. People cling harder, negotiate away their own values, and silence their desires. It's not love at that point. It's a survival tactic. But Carl Jung said, The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. You cannot do that if you're always drowning in someone else's presence. From the earliest stories, we're told a common thread. You're not whole until you find your other half, but beneath that comforting surface is a subtle, dangerous belief that on your own you are incomplete. And when you accept that belief, you begin to live as though your worth and stability depend on someone else. This isn't love. It's dependence disguised as devotion. The wholeness you seek from someone else can only ever be built from within. You were never half of a whole. You were always an entire person capable of love, creation, and purpose without needing to fuse yourself to another. Breaking free from this myth doesn't mean rejecting relationships altogether. It means approaching them from a place of self-sufficiency rather than need. When you strip away the constant hum of other people's voices, something unexpected rises in its place. At first, it's unsettling, but in solitude, your mind roams without needing permission. It wanders into strange territory, stumbles onto connections it wouldn't have made under the gaze of an audience. Carl Jung once said, "Solitude is for me a fountain of healing which makes my life worth living." The greatest ideas rarely arrive when you're surrounded by noise. They don't tend to grow in rooms filled with chatter. They emerge in the still hours. And that freedom, the creative edge sharpens. Without compromise, without the subtle pressure to adjust your pace for another person, your mind learns to stretch in ways that can't happen in the crowd. Solitude acts as a laboratory for your imagination where mistakes are not only allowed but necessary. When you step out of the constant exchange of emotions that comes with being closely tied to someone else, something subtle but powerful begins to happen. You enter an emotional detox. You begin to realize just how much of what you've been feeling all along wasn't even yours. Their highs become your highs. Their lows seep into your bones. But in solitude, the static starts to clear. You stop waking up braced for emotional surprises. You stop rehearsing conversations in your head before they happen. The space left behind isn't empty. It's breathable. Emotional independence doesn't mean you stop caring about others. It means you stop carrying them in ways that cost you yourself. When you choose to live on your own terms, the labels come quickly: lonely, selfish, incomplete. These words aren't really about you. They're about the discomfort your independence stirs in others. You've stepped outside the script society wrote for you. And people don't quite know what to do with that. It's a fundamental truth that the system loves dependence because it's predictable, it's stable, it's easy to manage. But step outside of that familiar pattern, live a life that is fully and unapologetically your own, whether single or sovereign in your spirit, and suddenly you become harder to define, harder to categorize. You become a puzzle they can't solve, and for some, that's a threat. This kind of personal sovereignty isn't something you just stumble into on a Tuesday afternoon. It's not a gift that's handed to you. It's something you earn. And believe me, the price is never cheap. To truly claim it, you have to consciously let go of the things most people cling to as proof of a good life: the constant validation, the social accolades, the traditional milestones. But the reward for paying this steep price is a life that is unmistakably, authentically your own. Every decision, every triumph, every single mistake carries your signature. It's a masterpiece painted by your hand alone, and that is a beauty few ever get to experience. There is a moment in this journey, a quiet, piercing, irreversible moment, when a person stops hoping the world will finally understand them. That's the exact moment you stop performing for an audience and start truly becoming yourself. Rejection feels intensely personal because it touches something primal in us, that deep-seated need to belong. But what often feels like rejection is actually redirection. It's a course correction from the universe. You weren't dismissed because you lacked value. You were simply pushed aside because your depth couldn't be digested by shallow eyes. Your complexity was too much for a world that prefers simplicity. As the philosopher Marcus Aurelius once said, "The opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know anything about the subject." This is a powerful reminder. The world, for the most part, doesn't recognize nuance. It operates in black and white and neat little boxes. So when you don't fit into those tidy categories, you become an inconvenience. But once you truly learn that, once you internalize it, You stop chasing explanations. You stop wasting your energy wondering why someone didn't choose you for a job, a relationship, or a friendship. You realize that not being chosen was the blessing. It wasn't a rejection, it was a release. It gave you back to yourself. In every life, there comes a quiet turning point. It's a phase where the version of you that once felt so essential, the one who constantly sought approval and measured self-worth by external validation, begins to fall apart. That old self, the one who needed to be liked, begins to rot away. And it's crucial to understand that this is not failure. It's not a breakdown. It's evolution. When something dies within you, it isn't always a loss. Sometimes, it's the very first breath of something deeper, something more real, something that has been waiting to emerge from beneath the surface. True presence, that magnetic quality some people have, doesn't come from how much you say or how loudly you say it. It comes from how little you need to say. There's a kind of quiet, unshakable power in someone who has genuinely stopped seeking validation from the outside world. There's a certain weight in their stillness, a gravity to their calm. You can feel it when they walk into a room. They don't try to dominate the space or command attention. They don't need to. They simply are. Their presence is their power, and it's felt without a single word being spoken. And then, there's this strange, liberating kind of freedom that arrives the moment you stop needing to be cared for in a certain way. Not because you've become bitter or numb or have built walls around your heart. It's because you've finally outgrown the illusion that your strength should depend on how others treat you. You begin to move from a different place entirely. From a solid center within yourself that doesn't ask for permission, doesn't beg to be seen, and doesn't fall apart when it's inevitably ignored or misunderstood. Your foundation is no longer external, it's forged within. So when you notice that you stop needing that external care, don't mistake that profound shift for a loss. It's a return, it's a reclaiming, it's a sharpening of your own spirit. You've taken back the most important thing you could ever possess, the ability to guide yourself, to be your own North Star. And that's where everything changes. That's the moment when life truly starts to move in your favor, not because the world suddenly wakes up and understands you, but because you've stopped needing it to. In that space of self-reliance, you become something unshakable, not because you were born that way, but because you chose it. You chose it again, and again, and again, until your mind finally, deeply believed that you were already whole, already worthy, already enough. Thank you for watching. If this resonated with you, consider subscribing for more journeys into the self.